In a tense, windowless interview room, psychologist Dr. Martin Orne sits across from a young man attempting an audacious legal deception. Kenneth Bianchi stares blankly at the institutional walls, suddenly shedding his own identity to introduce a sinister alternate personality he calls Steve Walker. He stole this name from a real psychology student, hoping to use this violent alter ego to absorb the blame for a horrific string of tragedies in Los Angeles. The prosecution watches this videotaped session in absolute dread, knowing their entire case relies heavily on Banjani testifying against his older cousin Angelo Buo. Buio sits quietly in a holding cell, waiting for his trial to begin, fully aware that this psychological manipulation could stall the justice system indefinitely. If this desperate multiple personality charade succeeds, the meticulous work of hundreds of detectives will unravel, and a ruthless predator might walk out of the courthouse a free man. Los Angeles in the fall of 1977 exists as a sprawling metropolis of sharp contrasts, where the brilliant neon lights of Hollywood cast long dark shadows over the gritty pavement below. The deafening hum of cicadas in the dry hills often competes with the roar of heavy traffic flowing down the concrete arteries of the city. Sunset Boulevard hums with restless energy, lined with glowing diners, peeling billboards, and independent dreamers chasing elusive futures. 19-year-old Yolanda Washington navigates this bustling environment, walking the glittering strip at night to support her young daughter. She represents a vulnerable but fiercely resilient segment of the population, facing the daily hazards of street work with quiet determination. Los Angeles residents feel generally secure in their vast city, accustomed to the typical urban hustle while remaining entirely unaware of an impending coordinated threat. Young women wait at lonely bus stops under flickering sodium streetlights, completely oblivious to any danger lurking just beyond the glow. People hitchhike freely along the Pacific Coast Highway, viewing the city as a playground of opportunity rather than a hunting ground. The sprawling geography of the city, stretching from the sandy beaches of Santa Monica to the arid valleys of the east, makes everyone feel strangely disconnected yet secure. No one imagines that a highly organized pair of predators is currently mapping these very streets. The local community expects ordinary street crime, never anticipating a calculated nightmare designed to dismantle their sense of security. Across the city, 21-year-old Lissa Caston leads a vibrant, artistic life deeply intertwined with the local entertainment culture. She works tirelessly as a part-time waitress, pouring coffee for tired locals, but her true passion lies on the stage as a professional cabaret dancer for a popular troupe known as the L. A. Knockers, Lissa radiates warmth, fiercely loved by her peers for her relentless ambition and bright, engaging smile. Her days consist of grueling dance rehearsals in dusty studios and long shifts waiting tables, moving constantly through the endless grid of the metropolis. The vast distance between Lissa in the heart of the city and a quiet neighborhood in Glendale seems enormous, yet it offers zero protection. Situated roughly 10 miles north of the bustling downtown area, Glendale presents a facade of mundane suburban peace. Here, nestled among quiet storefronts and residential blocks, sits an entirely unremarkable upholstery shop owned by a man named Angelo Buo. Dust motes float in the afternoon sunbeams, slicing through the shop windows, illuminating stacks of heavy fabrics, specialized needles, and industrial sewing machines. The heavy metallic click of the front door deadbolt echoes through the small space whenever Bulio locks up for the day. He projects the image of a meticulous, hard-working craftsman, hiding his dark nature behind a mundane blue-collar existence. Customers bring their damaged furniture to this shop, completely unaware that a meticulously designed trap operates just beyond the front counter. The fragile illusion of safety shatters permanently on the morning of October 17, 1977. A heavy layer of coastal fog clings to the rugged brush surrounding the steep hillsides of the Forest Lawn Cemetery, a quiet expanse situated just north of the city center. A passing motorist navigates the winding, narrow road, spotting something highly unusual discarded among the dry chaparral and loose rocks. Law enforcement officers arrive to make a grim discovery, identifying the remains as those of 19-year-old Yolanda Washington. The serene, quiet atmosphere of the canyon stands in chilling contrast to the calculated brutality of her final moments. Investigators carefully document the scene, noting the specific, deliberate way the perpetrator positioned her to ensure maximum visibility and shock value. Detectives search the steep terrain for tire tracks or discarded personal items, struggling against the difficult landscape and the sheer isolation of the drop site. The physical geography of the hillside offers very little forensic material, leaving the investigators grasping for any solid lead. They initially view this tragedy as an isolated incident, an unfortunate consequence of the dangerous nighttime economy along Sunset Boulevard. Authorities process the area meticulously, taking endless photographs of the surrounding brush while the morning sun slowly burns off the heavy fog. Nobody within the Los Angeles Police Department realizes that this lonely stretch of canyon road marks the official beginning of a relentless, coordinated campaign of terror. Within weeks, the isolated tragedy transforms into a full-scale crisis as more young women begin to vanish without a trace from various corners of the massive city. Students, waitresses, and teenagers disappear from bus stops, well-lit shopping centers, and seemingly safe residential neighborhoods in broad daylight. The rugged terrain ringing the Los Angeles basin quickly becomes a dumping ground, with search teams repeatedly finding remains in the dense brush of the surrounding canyons. Each discovery features the same chilling signature, with the victims left in specific degrading poses designed strictly to taunt the responding officers. A profound sense of dread washes over the community, completely paralyzing the vibrant nightlife and altering the daily routines of millions of residents. The local press seizes upon the escalating panic, splashing terrifying headlines across every newsstand and officially dubbing the unseen predator the Hillside Strangler. Women quickly abandon the practice of hitchhiking, refusing to walk alone after dark and clustering together in small, heavily armed groups for basic protection. Store owners sell out of heavy deadbolts, pepper spray, and window locks as a deep psychological terror takes root in every neighborhood. Law enforcement agencies pour massive resources into the manhunt, firmly believing they are tracking a single, highly mobile, and exceptionally organized individual. They profile a lone mastermind hunting the neon-lit streets, tragically unaware that two distinct men are currently sharing a dark, terrifying secret. The sheer scale of the threat forces a historical, unprecedented alliance between the Los Angeles Police Department and the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Investigators set up a massive joint task force inside a cramped, smoke-filled command center in downtown Los Angeles. Detectives pin hundreds of crime scene photographs to heavy corkboards, mapping a vast territorial web stretching from the coastal cliffs of Santa Monica to the dusty ravines of Eagle Rock. The geographical spread of the recovery sites creates an absolute nightmare for forensic units attempting to preserve tire tracks and shoe prints in the loose dirt. Telephones ring constantly as dispatchers field thousands of frantic tips from a terrified public demanding immediate results. Behind this curtain of panic, the perpetrators employ a simple, devastating tactic to bypass the heightened vigilance of the community. Angelo Buo and Kenneth Biani utilize counterfeit law enforcement badges to project authority and demand compliance from their targets. They cruise the dark avenues in a nondescript vehicle, pulling alongside isolated women, waiting for transit or walking home from late shifts. By flashing the metallic shields under the dim streetlights, they weaponize the innate public trust in uniform officers. The victims step into the vehicle willingly, believing they are complying with a routine police inquiry or accepting a safe escort out of the dangerous night. This calculated psychological trick leaves behind zero signs of a struggle on the sidewalks, depriving investigators of crucial initial crime scenes. This counterfeit authority directly fuels a massive, crippling investigative dead end that consumes the task force for most of 1978. Detectives analyze the spotless abduction sites and conclude that only a genuine uniform-wearing rogue officer possesses the training to make targets vanish so cleanly. Bureaucratic tunnel vision sets in as the command staff rigidly enforces this lone wolf police suspect theory, actively deprioritizing alternative profiles. Investigators spend grueling weeks subpoenaing duty rosters, cross-referencing patrol logs, and interrogating their own ranks to find a phantom renegade. Jurisdictional boundaries create infuriating systemic friction, as city police and county sheriffs struggle to share vital forensic reports due to incompatible filing protocols. Valuable civilian tips describing two men in a plain sedan end up buried under mountains of paperwork, dismissed by supervisors who strictly seek a single man in a black and white cruiser. Detectives waste countless hours chasing useless license plates, interviewing disgruntled former academy recruits, and setting up elaborate female officer decoys along Sunset Boulevard. These undercover operations yield nothing but routine vice arrests, leaving the primary investigation spinning in circles. The rigid adherence to the single suspect theory allows the true perpetrators to operate completely undetected, just miles away from the command center. The system completely fails the missing women, blinded by a flawed internal bias that refuses to adapt to conflicting witness statements. While the Joint Task Force chases shadows through the city limits, a grim reality unfolds 10 miles north in the quiet, working-class suburb of Glendale. The modest storefront of the upholstery shop sits wedged between a busy intersection and a row of quiet residential homes, projecting total normalcy to the passing traffic. Inside the shop, the heavy scent of industrial glue and dusty fabric hangs thickly in the air, masking a perfectly constructed trap. When the front door clicks shut and the heavy iron deadbolt slides into place, the small business transforms into an inescapable nightmare for the captive women. The heavy, sound-dampening materials stacked high against the walls ensure that no desperate cries for help ever reach the sidewalk outside. Angelo Buo and Kenneth Bianchi systematically dismantle the hope of their captives, inflicting profound psychological torment before bringing their lives to a permanent close. They force the young women to endure unimaginable emotional cruelty, stripping away their dignity within feet of a bustling neighborhood. The perpetrators utilize lengths of heavy cord and cloth from the shop inventory, subduing the victims with absolute clinical precision. The mundane setting amplifies the horror, as the victims realize their final moments are unfolding behind the thin glass of a normal commercial street. After dark, the two men carry out the grim task of transporting the remains back into the rugged hillsides, slipping seamlessly into the night traffic. The investigation grinds through the sweltering summer and into the autumn months of 1978 without yielding a single structural breakthrough. Task force members spend the tedious empty spaces between discoveries reviewing thousands of latent fingerprints lifted from public telephone booths near the disappearance sites. Laboratory technicians work double shifts, analyzing microscopic fibers retrieved from the victims, desperately trying to match the unusual synthetic threads to automotive carpets. Detectives organize massive grid searches of the Angeles National Forest, kicking through dry brush and examining discarded trash bags in a frantic hunt for the primary staging area. Every Friday night, patrol units flood the entertainment districts, shining spotlights into dark alleys and stopping suspicious vehicles, only to return to the station with empty hands. The exhaustive day-by-day police work creates an overwhelming volume of data, leading to severe clerical bottlenecks within the shared task force headquarters. Typists struggle to catalog the endless stream of civilian interviews, causing crucial cross-references to slip through the cracks of the outdated filing system. The sheer weight of the unsolved cases pushes seasoned investigators to the brink of physical exhaustion, breeding intense frustration and internal arguments over the direction of the hunt. The perpetrators remain completely silent during these long stretches, forcing the police to wait helplessly for the next inevitable tragedy to provide a fresh clue. The agonizing stalemate finally breaks in January of 1979, sparked by a profound geographical shift over 1,000 miles away from the California heat. Kenneth Bianchi relocates from the arid, smog-choked basin of Los Angeles to the damp, dense pine forests of Bellingham, Washington. This small coastal university town features quiet, rain-slicked streets and a close-knit community entirely unaccustomed to severe urban crime. Bianchi seeks to distance himself from his older cousin and the mounting pressure of the task force, integrating himself into the new environment. He applies for employment with a local security firm, submitting official background paperwork and leaving a highly visible, undeniable paper trail. The false sense of safety in Bellingham emboldens Bianchi, stripping away the careful, disciplined methods previously enforced by Angelo Buo in Glendale. Operating without his partner, Bianchi abandons the meticulously planned abduction strategies and targets 2 local university students in a brazen, poorly concealed attack. He uses a vacant residential property he has access to through his security work, dragging his new victims into the empty house. The coastal community recoils in absolute horror when authorities discover the tragic outcome in the back of a parked vehicle a short time later. This reckless deviation from the established protocol creates a massive tear in the protective veil that had shielded the men for over a year. The Bellingham police immediately process the grim discovery, utilizing meticulous, step-by-step forensic procedures that yield spectacular results. Crime scene investigators vacuum the interior of the vehicle, collecting microscopic trace evidence that directly points back to a specific uniform and location. The physical geography of the small town plays a crucial role, as detectives rapidly trace the property keys back to the specific security firm employing the new arrival from California. Bellingham authorities interrogate Kenneth Bianchi and run his identification, discovering his recent relocation from the exact epicenter of the massive Los Angeles manhunt. Washington State forensic technicians identified distinctive synthetic fibers and a highly specific method of operation that perfectly mirrors the restricted task force files. The local police chief immediately places a priority telephone call to the Los Angeles Command Center, reporting the unbelievable coincidence sitting in their holding cell. This singular moment of jurisdictional cooperation bypasses all previous bureaucratic roadblocks, instantly bridging the gap between the 2 separate investigations. Los Angeles detectives listen to the specific details of the Bellingham tragedies, recognizing the undeniable signature of the phantom they have hunted for over a year. The arrogant assumption that he could simply resume his dark activities in a new state becomes the exact thread that unravels the entire criminal enterprise. A team of elite Los Angeles detectives boards a northbound flight, carrying thick binders of forensic evidence to confront their elusive suspect. Inside the cold cinderblock interrogation room in Washington, the investigators dismantle the arrogant facade of Kenneth Bianchi piece by piece. They lay out the undeniable physical proof, cornering him with the security company records, the matched fibers, and the glaring inconsistencies in his timeline. Realizing the massive weight of the evidence guarantees a trip to the execution chamber, Bianchi attempts to save his own life by making a desperate, calculated gamble. He formally waives his right to silence and provides a full confession, officially confirming that the terrifying phantom of Los Angeles consists of two distinct individuals. Bianchi details the exact layout of the Glendale upholstery shop, describing hidden tools and specific interior features that only the true perpetrators could possibly know. He points a direct finger at his older cousin, portraying Angelo Buo as the primary mastermind who orchestrated the year-long campaign of terror. Armed with this explosive testimony, law enforcement units in California descend upon the quiet Glendale intersection with overwhelming force. Heavily armed officers surround the mundane storefront, shatter the lock on the front door, and place Angelo Buo in steel handcuffs. The sprawling, terrifying mystery officially ends in the dust of the upholstery shop, setting the stage for an unprecedented legal war. The Los Angeles County Courthouse stands as an imposing fortress of heavy stone and glass in the center of the city. Thick oak doors seal off Department 104 from the chaotic foot traffic echoing through the corridors outside. The process of selecting an impartial jury consumes nearly a full calendar year before a single witness takes the stand. Prosecutors sift through thousands of potential jurors, desperate to find citizens untainted by the massive media hysteria surrounding the case. Inside the stifling chamber, a mere 15 feet of polished floor separates the elevated witness stand from the wooden defense table. Angelo Buo sits frozen at that table, wearing a crisp suit and projecting the identical mask of quiet normalcy he utilized at the upholstery shop. Kenneth Bianchi enters through the heavy side doors in November of 1981, carrying the immense weight of a highly controversial plea agreement. Prosecutors built their entire legal foundation around his exact step-by-step confessions obtained in Washington. The state demands a clear recitation of the facts to secure a swift conviction. Instead, Bianchi weaponizes his position and unleashes absolute chaos upon the proceedings. The star witness takes the oath, leans toward the microphone, and claims total amnesia. He stares blankly at the jury, attempting to resurrect a debunked multiple personality defense right in front of the judge. Bianchi claims a violent, fictional alter ego named Steve Walker controlled his actions, attempting to absolve his true self of any legal responsibility. This sudden psychological trickery forces the prosecution to halt their momentum and bring in leading psychological experts to dismantle the charade. The prosecution calls upon Dr. Martin Orn, a renowned expert in hypnosis and psychological deception, to expose the fraud to the jury. Dr. Orn conducts his evaluations in a sterile, windowless room, utilizing heavy reel-to-reel audio recorders to capture every spoken syllable. He brings decades of clinical experience to the table, identifying the subtle, arrogant micro-expressions that betray the deception. He understands that genuine dissociative disorders possess very specific, documented clinical parameters. He devises a brilliant, subtle psychological trap during his initial videotaped evaluation of the suspect. Dr. Orn casually suggests to Bianchi that genuine patients with multiple personalities exhibit 3 distinct alters, not just 2. Bianchi absorbs this false clinical suggestion and manifests a third personality named Billy during the very next session. The prosecution plays these precise videotaped sessions in the courtroom, displaying the sheer arrogant calculation behind the disorder. The jury watches in absolute silence as Biani falls directly into the psychological snare set by the expert. This undeniable visual evidence shatters the illusion of the Steve Walker persona, exposing Bianchi as a cunning, manipulative fraud. Despite this devastating revelation, the defense attorneys continue to press forward, utilizing the sheer volume of psychiatric testimony to stall the proceedings. Presiding Judge Ronald George faces the monumental task of maintaining order amidst this constant courtroom sabotage. Bianchi twists his answers on the stand, drops vital details, and feigns deep confusion to muddy the official record. This calculated strategy exploits a severe vulnerability in the justice system regarding accomplice testimony. California state law mandates strict independent corroboration for any statements made by a co-conspirator to secure a valid conviction. Defense attorneys file endless pretrial motions, creating mountains of paperwork designed specifically to exhaust the resources of the state. Without a reliable primary witness, the defense attorneys attack the credibility of the entire massive investigation. They argue that the state holds no direct proof against Buyo beyond the unreliable babbling of a documented liar. Bulu watches this systematic destruction of the state case with a calm, arrogant confidence. He believes the erratic behavior of his cousin will provide the necessary reasonable doubt to grant him an acquittal. The trial stretches out over 2 agonizing years, breaking records to become the longest criminal trial in American history. Families of the victims sit in the hard wooden gallery day after day, forced to endure this agonizing public circus. This glaring legal loophole forces the prosecution to rethink their entire strategy to prevent a catastrophic miscarriage of justice. The state realizes they must construct an independent, airtight case relying solely on physical forensics. Facing a collapse of their star witness, the prosecution team radically pivots their approach and turns back to the hard physical evidence. Investigators previously executed a massive search warrant at the Glendale upholstery shop, dismantling the location down to the floorboards. Prosecutors haul heavy cardboard boxes of this retrieved physical evidence directly into the courtroom. They bypass the ruined testimony and corroborate the original confessions using microscopic trace materials hidden in the shop. Forensic technicians display enlarged photographs of unique synthetic fibers pulled from the victims. Laboratory technicians spend thousands of hours comparing the chemical composition of the threads using advanced gas chromatography. They document the exact dye lots and weave patterns, proving a statistical certainty that the materials originated from the specific commercial stock inside the shop. Detectives take the stand to confirm the precise interior layout of the shop, including a hidden doorway and structural soundproofing. This physical mapping proves that Bianchi possessed intimate knowledge of the hidden spaces before changing his story. The legal team introduces crucial utility bills, telephone records, and geographical timelines that place Buo at the exact center of the abduction zones. Step by step, the prosecutors build an overwhelming web of circumstantial proof that traps the silent defendant. The true nature of the predator behind the defense table becomes visible to every single person in the room. The exhausting legal marathon reaches a definitive conclusion in the late autumn of 1983. A weary jury retreats to the deliberation room, carrying the massive burden of tens of thousands of pages of complex trial transcripts. The jury remains sequestered for 24 agonizing days, carefully mapping out the complex web of circumstantial evidence. They utilize massive corkboards inside the deliberation room, connecting the utility records, the fiber analysis, and the initial confessions. Foremen read through thick binders of cross-examination transcripts, ensuring every single reasonable doubt is extinguished. The physical geography of the evidence room resembles a massive archive, packed wall to wall with the grim artifacts of the investigation. Despite the overwhelming volume of data, the jury pierces through the layers of psychiatric deception. They recognize the undeniable partnership that terrorized the city streets and dismantle the false narrative woven by the defense. The jury returns to a silent courtroom and delivers a resounding verdict of guilty for Angelo Buo on 9 separate counts. The impenetrable mask of the Glendale craftsman shatters as the reality of his ultimate defeat sets in. The families in the gallery let out long, heavy breaths, releasing years of built-up terror and frustration. The relentless, meticulous detective work ultimately triumphs over the chaotic theatrics of the longest trial in history. The court proceedings require a massive security presence with armed deputies lining the wood-paneled walls of the chamber. Judge Ronald George addresses the court with stern, uncompromising authority. He stares directly at the convicted man while reading the final disposition, refusing to offer any leniency. He details the specific aggravating factors of the case, highlighting the calculated predatory nature of the partnership. The judge states on the official record that the defendant truly deserves the ultimate penalty for his calculated cruelty. Due to complex legal restrictions surrounding the charging documents, the court hands down a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. The final sentence guarantees that the heavy steel doors of the state penitentiary will never open for the convicted man. Kenneth Bianchi also faces swift, severe consequences for his brazen attempts to sabotage the American justice system. The court determines that Bianchi actively violated the strict terms of his initial plea agreement through his deceptive courtroom performances. Authorities lock him away for the rest of his natural life, enforcing the strictest conditions of his incarceration. The massive legal apparatus of Los Angeles County grinds to a halt, closing the darkest chapter in its modern history. The tireless prosecutors pack up their massive files, leaving the heavy oak courtroom doors closed for the final time. This monumental, record-breaking prosecution alters the landscape of American jurisprudence. The chaotic courtroom battle forces lawmakers and judges to establish incredibly strict new protocols regarding psychiatric defenses and dissociative identity claims. Never again will a defendant be allowed to hijack a major criminal trial using unverified psychological theatrics. Law enforcement academies across the nation integrate the missteps and ultimate triumphs of the task force into their standard curriculum. The case highlights the absolute necessity of interagency cooperation, breaking down the rigid bureaucratic walls that separate city and county jurisdictions. Detectives learn to prioritize trace forensic evidence over the unreliable narratives provided by manipulative suspects. For the shattered families of Yolanda Washington, Lissa Caston, and the other lost women, the final gavel strike provides a vital sense of closure. They endured years of agonizing bureaucratic delays, systemic failures, and painful public spectacles to see the predators held accountable. The victims transform from tragic headlines back into cherished daughters, sisters, and mothers in the memory of the community. The true crime narrative correctly frames these women as innocent targets of a predatory partnership, regardless of their diverse lifestyles or professions. The justice system, despite its severe procedural flaws and painful delays, eventually succeeds in permanently removing the threat. Angelo Buo spends the remainder of his days locked inside the harsh concrete walls of Calatatria State Prison. Stripped of his freedom and his deceptive mundane facade, he fades into the rigid anonymous routine of the penitentiary system. His life of control and manipulation meets a quiet, uneventful end in September of 2002. He suffers a fatal heart attack alone in his cell, isolated from the world he once sought to dominate. Kenneth Bianchi remains permanently incarcerated at the Washington State Penitentiary, forgotten by the city he once terrorized. The parole board continues to recognize his profound danger, explicitly denying his request for release in 2025. The extensive psychological profiles generated during the trial ensure he will never manipulate his way out of a maximum security cell. The Glendale upholstery shop eventually changes ownership, the physical structure scrubbed clean of its dark history. The arid hillsides surrounding the city return to their natural, quiet state, no longer serving as a grim dumping ground. The names of the perpetrators fade into the sterile archives of the state prison system, stripped of the terrifying mythology they once sought to create. Today, the vibrant, glowing streets of Los Angeles stretch endlessly toward the coast, free from the shadows that once emerged from a quiet upholstery shop. The legacy of the massive investigation remains a powerful reminder of the relentless pursuit of truth.